Every day I'm saying to the Lord, give us today our daily bread, because there was real problems in my families and my church. We had some real difficulties. People were in debt. And after about 3 months, one morning, early in the morning, I was in my prayer room, and all of a sudden, it was like the presence of God just came into the room. I just felt it come down over top of me. And everything went quiet. You know, when God turns up, sometimes you know if you say anything, it's going to be the wrong thing. So I just went real quiet, and then I heard God speak to me and said, enough, Bruce, I heard you. So I went off to church absolutely buzzing. And I was just electric. I was so thrilled with the fact that I knew that I'd met with God. And that morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, one of the ladies came into the church. Her name is Jenny. And when Jenny came into the church, she said, how are you, Pastor? I said, I'm fantastic. I had a great time of prayer this morning. And she said, what were you praying for? I said, I was praying about the mortgages of people in our church. And she said, I was asking God to give me an answer. How can we help our families? And she looked up, this is what she did. She looked up at the ceiling. She said, it's time, isn't it, Father? I said, time for what? She said, it's time for me to tell you something. I've been praying about it too, and I think God's given me an answer. Well, I've got to cut the story short because I don't want to go too long tonight. But the answer was Liberty Trust.
Maybe I want to.
Very good. She had this idea that maybe 7 families could get together, and that together what they do is that they would all pray about who God wanted to set free from their mortgage first. Does anyone know what the word mortgage means?
Death grip.
Yeah, very good. It means death grip. Yeah, mort means to die or to kill. Gauge means to grip or to hold. So it's a death grip. And that's what it tries to do. So she thought, okay, these 7 families should get together and they should pray about who God wanted to set free from their mortgage first. When they knew who that was, they would all give that family an extra $20 a week. That's $140 extra a week until the mortgage was gone. Then they would come together and they would pray again, ask who did God want to set free second, and then they'd do the same for that person until all 7 families were there. So when she came to see me that day, she said, when I prayed about what to do about this, she said, God told me, tell your pastor he will know what to do. Which was a bit freaky because I had no idea what to do. But when I went home, I started to work on the numbers, just to work around what happened if 7 families did that and they all gave $20. So I just got my calculator and I went $140, that's 7 families times $20 per week, times 52 weeks. And these quite big numbers came up. And then I thought, well, what if it wasn't 7 families? What if it was 50 families? So I'm punching in my calculator and I said, what if it was 100 families? My dear wife, she's trying to go to sleep and I'm going, look at this, honey, look at this. Because all of these really big numbers started coming up on my phone, on my calculator. And then I thought to myself, what if they didn't give the money to each other? What if they loaned it? Because I thought if they give the money to each other, it sets those 7 families free. But then their children have got to go through the same thing all over again because there's no fund. So I thought if we loaned the money, then the money stays in perpetuity. And really answering those questions or asking those questions is how Liberty Trust started. So when we worked out that we thought the idea would work, I called a public meeting. 150 people turned up and 122 people signed these application forms. 122 people signed that form there. And that's what we began. Each of them gave $20. So our first week's income was $2,440. 122 people by times 20. Now $2,440 doesn't solve anybody's mortgage. But what the neat thing was that the next week they gave $2,440 too. And the next week they gave, and now we are 29 years later. There's never been 1 week with less than $2,440. And now it's a whole lot more. In fact, we have 1,000 people paying in money in now. And every single day of the year, 365 days a year, over $15,000 comes in. Isn't that amazing? It started off at just $2,400. So nowadays, of course, it took us, because we started with nothing, absolutely nothing. There's no rich person came and helped us. Just ordinary families like us, just people like us. And so it took us 8 years before we reached $1 million. It took us 8 years to pay off $1 million or loan $1 million. Nowadays, we loan $1 million every 2 months and 10 days. So every 2 months and 10 days, another $1 million is loaned to New Zealand Christians or New Zealand churches. Isn't that fantastic? That's why we're up to $50 million, sorry. And so what I wanted to say all that for is because I absolutely believe it's the answer for lots of our families. I believe it can make a huge difference, and I'm just so excited about the future. Our trust fund now, remember, I don't think I told you this the other day, but when we started off, in the first week we got $2,440. Woo! Nowadays our trust fund is over $16 million, and it's growing. Every year it grows by more than 2 million. So it's a lot of money, isn't it? And as I said, we know now from our statistics that in the 50th year, we're at 29 years now, at the 50th year, which, you know, for you young guys at the back, that's not too far away, it's only 21 years. We will have loaned $250 million, New Zealand dollars, interest-free, no interest, to New Zealand Christians and New Zealand churches. So I'm sorry I didn't take more time. I often feel a bit embarrassed because I don't want to feel like I'm selling something to you. But if you, like my daughter, if she was here, she'd be blunt. She's a lot more blunt than me. She'd say, oh guys, sign up. She'd say, I'm 34 years of age and I've got no bank loan and a house over $1 million. Just because of Liberty Trust. So, you know, I really believe in it. I just believe it's the answer. But the reason it works is two reasons. Number one, sowing and reaping. Because what you do is you contribute first. Everybody sows in. Minimum of $10 a week, a maximum of whatever you can afford. You just keep sowing in. As I said, I sow in for my grandchildren because their papa wants to buy them their first home by the time they're 15. That's my goal, is to before they're 20 they'll have their first home. Wouldn't that be cool? And that's what I'm going to try and do. So all that, so it works because of sowing and reaping. The second reason it works is because we work together. You know, the Africans, they have a saying, I don't know if you've ever heard of the saying. The Africans have a saying, it goes like this: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Great saying. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that's what Liberty Trust does. Liberty Trust is just Christians saying, let's do it together. And so please take the material, and if you think, wow, this could work for my family, this could work for my life, it could work for my children, it could work for my grandchildren, sign up. It's an order of joining, so when you join, you're given a number. From the first day you make a payment, you're given a number, and then as each person's paid off, then you come closer and closer. It takes about 8 years of sowing before you reap.
And could get shorter, right, depending on, so time-wise and how many people invest.
It goes up.
And roughly $1 is $5 or $6.
Yeah. So for every dollar you loan, sorry, my brother. Every dollar you donate, you're eligible to borrow $6. So if you put in 50,000, for example, over 8 or 10 years, you can borrow 300,000 interest-free. There's a Pacific Island church down South Auckland. They're just looking for a property now. They're going to borrow $1 million interest-free. By a church building, because they've contributed for it. Amazing, yeah. Any other questions, or is that kind of
Is it one form per person, or?
You can do it in all kinds of different ways. Like I had one man in a meeting, and he had 22 children and grandchildren. He signed up, he filled out 22 forms, and he paid a little bit in for each one, because he wanted all his children to be involved, and all his grandchildren to be involved. The rule is this: whoever pays the donation, they decide how it's going to be used. So even though I've signed my grandchildren up, I decide how it's going to be used, because it's my money that's going in, that's contributing. So you can either do one and pay as much as you can, and then when you get it, you can distribute it any way you like, or you can sign up for each of your children or whatever way. So just work it out what's worked best for your family. It's not like a bondage. If you suddenly found you couldn't afford to pay, just stop for a while. If you can't keep, let's say you signed up for $50 a week, say, oh, I can't do it, just pull it back. It's not a rule. It's just people helping people. It just, like, I've got so many people that say, tell everybody, just sign up, because it's helping families all over New Zealand.
So if this was to go nationwide, the trust, would we need the banks?
No, eventually, if the whole church of New Zealand started in Liberty Trust, within 15 years we wouldn't need banks. Because the church is powerful. The church is big. When we first started, I felt the Lord say to me, the devil uses a simple method to control people. Divide and conquer. He just keeps everyone separated. We're powerful when we're together. I don't know whether you know this, but the words one another are 101 times in the New Testament. One another. What should we live for? One another. And when we do things together, we can do anything. The reason banks are so powerful is because Christians don't work together. Praise the Lord. But one day, Christians won't go to the banks. They'll go to something like Liberty Trust. That's what I believe.
Any questions? I think the one question I had about Liberty Trust was, what if you couldn't, so the earthquakes, if you couldn't keep up any type of payments?
Sure.
You know, is anyone sort of, what do we call it? You've defaulted your payments. So.
Yeah, that's a really important question. You know, people say, well, what if I couldn't pay? Well, my answer is always to answer with a question. What happens if you can't pay the bank? You know, they'll foreclose on your home. They'll sell your home from you if you can't pay, right? So, you know, ultimately, but I want to say this, we've been going for 29 years. We've never foreclosed on one home. We've never had one bad debt in 29 years. We've had some people stop. And so, you know, we thought, well, look, you know, if you got into trouble financially or you lost your job, who would you rather owe money to? To a bank or to a trust? I know which one I'd rather owe money to. And it was tested, and this is what we talked about the other day, as behind Stuart's question. We got tested on what would happen. What would happen if somebody couldn't pay? We were tested when the Christchurch earthquake happened. Because 12 families were in the red zone. 12 of our families with Liberty Trust were in the red zone. So they rang up and said, okay, our house is trashed. We can't go home, we're going to go and rent somewhere. What are we going to do? Well, what happened with the banks? The banks, the families like that, the banks said, okay, we will stop requiring your principal payments. You can stop paying, but they kept adding interest on. You hear what I'm saying? So they said to the people, you don't have to repay, but they kept adding interest on, so their loan was getting bigger. But Liberty Trust, we don't charge interest. So when our families rang us and said, we can't pay, we said, no problem, go and sort your family out. Go and rent a house. Once you're settled, once you've got your insurance, come back and talk to us. No penalty at all. So literally, isn't that, but you know, I'm just asking the question, isn't that what Christians should be like? That's why we're together, one another. It's all about one another. And so it was our biggest test, really. But I think we passed the test. We never penalised anyone. We never made anyone sell their home. We just waited till they were able to start their payments, they got their home, and then carried on again.
I think the beauty of Liberty Trust to me from that meeting was just that the fact that you're giving. So you say, well, how long do I need to pay this loan? So the quicker you can pay off, again, it's interest free. So for those who don't have home loans, we call it, instead of mortgages, but
home loans,
the fact that you're not paying interest is huge to start with. But the faster you pay off what you are owing inside the trust, the faster it is for someone else to get a loan. Which is some of the beauty.
How long do you were saying so? About 8 years you need to be investing.
Yes, you're sowing in for 8 years. Yeah.
And you were saying for every dollar, $6 type of thing.
Correct.
All right.
Now you repay it. Now when we first started, I shared this with Stuart. I was just honest with Stuart and Ty the other day, and I said I was enormously idealistic when we started. So we required everybody to repay their loan in 7 years. Does anyone know why that is? Because that's what the Old Testament says. If you loan off your brother, no interest, but you've got to pay back in 7 years. So all the original ones were all 7-year repayments. But now houses have got so expensive, we realise that some families just can't do it in 7 years. It's too tough. But I found out this, I did some research, and if you have a loan with interest, let's say it's 6.5 for interest, it's not quite that at the moment, it's about 4.6 I think at the moment. And you have paying interest and principal, and you have, and over 30 years, if you have that same loan with no interest, it's about 10 years. It's that much different. And so most of our families repay their homes in about 7 to 10 years. But everyone's worked out individually. We don't want people to get into trouble. So after 29 years, no bad debts, no foreclosures. Praise the Lord.